Well, thank you all for coming. I want to first acknowledge the fact that this event was created by the fact that you guys have been reaching out to the lovely Jennifer Gatz, and she got started talking to me about there's a lot of people who wanted this type of a talk back kind of scenario. We did struggle if we wanted to make it in person or since a lot of people are trying to do more in person stuff, or Zoom, and we decided to go with the Zoom just because we could also record it and it allowed people to get home in time and grab some food or drink, whatever they needed before we started. So the way we're going to do this is probably a little less formal than some of the other events you maybe have been at. We're going to talk a little bit about, between Jen, Cheyenne, and I are going to talk a little bit about ADing in different roles, but also our interaction with each other, because this is the most important part of the conversation, is the concept of the AD team, and how we support each other and how we collaborate with each other. We did look, there wasn't too many questions on the form, so if you do have a question while we're talking, you can either throw it up in the chat, right, or just raise your hand and we'll pay attention to answering that. Is paper still necessary on this set of scripts? Oh, already a question started.
Oh, Brandon had one before too. There was one.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
good.
All right. Okay. All right. So let's start with the conversation of what the AD team is. And the AD team, before we get to the specifics, as a whole, has the difficult job of working in between the producers and the creatives and the crew. We're like kind of a conduit between all those three different groups, and we're the center of it. By we being the AD team, we think that that we have to find a balance to be able to support what the needs are of the producing team, but also support what the needs are of the creatives. And by the creatives, I'm talking about the director and the DP, and as well as some of the designers and stuff, because how we schedule things could be very affect their worlds tremendously, but also on the crew. And one of our primary things is taking care of the crew and making sure that the crew feels like it's being supported and being informed accordingly. So the AD team, for those of you who have not had the luxury to have an AD team, once you actually have one, you will understand why that should be a must in your world. As well as times where people are trying to do small shows, shorts and stuff. There's nothing wrong with having at least one AD person whose focus is that is their primary focus in what they're doing. It will help your production in so many ways. It will help the morale in your crew base if they have someone they know they can go to and get immediate answers and quick answers. And it will also help your director feeling like there's somebody who's got my back and making sure that we're taking care of stuff. All right, so let me see. Should we dive into a couple of these questions right away, Jen, or do you want to hold off? What do you want to do, boss?
I feel like maybe if we kind of go through just like the first AD, the second AD, the second AD, like definition of them first, and then we can hit some questions. I think it might help. Yeah.
Give more context to the questions, to the answers to the questions. Sure. So I'll start with here's what I'll tell you. If you have a desire in your life to be a first AD, you must be a PA, a second, a second, and a first, because you have to understand the other roles that will be supporting you, right? for two reasons. One, to give them some breathing room when you know how crazy something might be happening because you're aware, you've had that similar experience, but also finding you can start weeding out people who you don't feel can pull the weight that they need to pull in those positions. Unless you've done that position, you're not going to understand it. The way a first AD was told to me, besides we're going to get into prep and all that separately, but the definition is that they are there to assist all functions of the set. So we are a person on an island, and on that island, there's where everything needs to be delivered. Cast gets delivered, crew gets delivered, equipment gets delivered, and you have to rely on your support off the set. And that really becomes really where it goes into the second AD's world. They become so valuable to you. And for me, as a first, a second, normally, unless there's a huge base camp scenario that I'm concerned about, will be on set with me. Will be on set with me as an extra set of eyes, ears, and hands for the set. There is a lot of psychology that comes around the ADing world, and it's not just barking orders and giving people information. You sometimes get stuck being that person who just has to share in your ear how upset they are that they cut their budget down. Now you can't get the stuff done that you're supposed to get, and you're not even sure if you're going to be able to make it. And sometimes you have to be the one who has to work with them on how to get it to a point where the director's requesting, or you're the one communicating that with to the director, so the director's aware. You are sometimes the bearer of bad news, but you always have to come with it with some type of resolution or potential solve for your problem. You are problem solving from the minute you walk in to that set to the minute you go home. There's still problem solving happening after you step off the set, and sometimes even once you get home. But ideally, you're like that. Your brain has to be solely focused on that. You have to know the script as well, and if not better, than your script supervisor and your director. You have to know story, the chronological order of events, the character development stuff that's happening. You have to be inside that director's head of what they're trying to create as much as they're willing to share with you, and if they're smart, they are, so that you're making sure that they're getting everything that they need. And you start collaborating very closely to a DP, because the two of you will start making sure that the coverage necessary is for the scenes are being completed. And if you have to change the shot list, that you can then therefore collaborate with the director, the DP, and yourself to be able to find, how do we tell that same story? So there is creative components to an AD. And it's not all just business. It's not all just numbers. It's not just all being a clock keeper. There are a lot of creative components that you get to participate with. With that, I think that I feel that gives you a good sense of what the AD is before we start breaking it down to the different periods. But then I'll pass it on to Jen to talk about second.
The second AD is, like Juan said, the helper to the first AD and the director, through the first AD. They collaborate with the first AD most. They're working with them to make sure that their schedule that they give is being honored, and everything is happening in the way that they are scheduling it to happen. They're also kind of the second eyes on that schedule to bring up any red flags, anything that doesn't seem like it's going to work or make sense. They're talking with them to try to make sure and provide everything that they need when they need it. They're shipping the people and things from base camp to set to the island where he's the king, where the first AD is the king, he or she, and you're passing everything there and making sure that they have it when they need it. You're collaborating with base camp. You're kind of as a second AD, you're kind of the boss of base camp. So you're making sure that hair and makeup and costumes and locations, if you're on location, everyone is working together to provide everything that set needs when they need it. You are scheduling everyone. You're working on the call sheet 90% of your day. You're working on the call sheet for the next day. Or if you're really getting ahead, you're working on the next one, just to make sure that things are going to happen the way they should happen. You are working with all the department heads, those that are on set and offset, even those who are like art department, who's working maybe on another set in another location. You're finding out who is working on their team for the next day to make sure your call sheet has all the correct people on it. You're working with all of the base camp folks to make sure that your timing is accurate. So if you know how long it's going to take cast to get through hair and makeup. Background, you're working with the extras casting director to make sure you have the background that you need, making sure that you're scheduling them for the right time so that they're going to be ready when they're needed on set. I don't know. What am I missing? Am I missing?
Yes, she is missing. The second AD is the conduit from the office to the set.
Oh, yeah. The office. And you make sure that you're working with the office in two ways. One is to make sure that you have all of the contracts and everything that needs to be done with the cast is done. Either it's done ahead of time and you've communicated that, or they've communicated that with you, or else they've sent you the contracts so that you get them to cast, to make sure it's signed before they ever go to set. You are working with accounting to make sure that all the paperwork is done. Everybody who either a new hire has all their paperwork done, or making sure that everyone has completed a daily timesheet at the end of the day to make sure, and that you work with the second AD in that capacity as well, to make sure that every single person has completed their timesheet and all their paperwork is done. You're working with talent agencies and talent to make sure that they have scripts, the most current script, the most current schedule. You're the hub of communication for the entire project. Once you're in production, you know, all the communication goes through you, to the whole, you know, cast and crew and background. Locations, you're working with locations to make sure that, and I mean, we're going to get into, I guess, this a little bit more in prep. You're doing things like you're going on scouts, location tech scouts to make sure that you have space for all the things that you need at base camp. Sometimes tech scouts are meant for all the key department heads to find out what is going to be on location for their needs. And they're only thinking about their needs. The first AD is really thinking about set. They're not really thinking about base camp. So it's your job to think about all the things that you need at base camp, where the actors are going to hold, where the green room is, where if it's, if you're lucky and you have a base camp with trailers, where all the trailers are going to be. That happens also with locations and transportation, but you kind of have to like wrangle all that information together. And then you communicate that information to other departments. They'll come to you and ask you questions about, well, where is this going to be? Or where's that? And you need to have those answers. and you work really closely with your second AD. This is a great segue to Shine.
Pass the baton, I'll get it. I think outside of just second AD, I think something that we've missed talking about as an AD in general, all encompassing, is like we are the safety officer on set throughout the whole production. It's everyone's job to make sure it's safe, right? Everything should be done safely, but we are like the peak of, if something's not safe, we're pulling the plug, you know what I mean? We're finding ways to make it safe. We're making sure that we're talking with everyone else, to like the heads of those particular departments, to make sure that, is this safe? Just wanted to start with that. Second AD. I as a second AD would be in the first AD's pocket pretty much the whole time. I'm on set. I'm like this little weasel that's just there behind the first AD, listening and making sure that they are supported 100%, because they have the whole production just on their shoulders. And I want to make sure that they don't have to micromanage all these little details. So I'm looking ahead as much as possible during the day. And it's like, okay, we're about to move on to the next scene. This scene calls for this prop, this talent, this da 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 da. I'm communicating with the second AD. We're about to move on. This much time probably. Is our cast ready? I need to make sure that that's all ready. And I would even probably invite them on my own accord if I felt comfortable enough. And so that when we move on to the next scene and they want to jump into a little blocking, the cast is right there, ready to just whoop, fly onto set. I don't like the first AD to be like, where's so-and-so? Oh yeah, let me go find. It needs to be all ready right there. Same goes for like prop pieces or any sort of art piece or grip equipment or whatever. I'm going to the crew and letting them know constantly, we're about to move on to this. We are going to need this. Is this ready? Are you ready? What do you need? And I'm kind of this conduit's been used a lot, but this little messenger for the first AD saying so-and-so needs so much more time. This has popped up. Maybe it's a little bit of a delay. This has come across there already. Yeah. I'm also kind of in charge of the PAs, which are in the AD department. We are all ADs, but I'm in charge of them so that the first AD doesn't have to worry about needing a lockup over there. You don't have to tell me. I can be like, okay, we need somebody locking up over there. We need somebody over here. Can you go grab this? Can you have this situated? I'm kind of like the head of the PAs and sending them there and there to get things done. What else do I do?
You forgot your favorite one.
Oh,
background.
The PR. Oh,
background.
Oh, okay, I love background. No wonder I forgot it.
And she's always said she hates it because she feels she's not good at it, but she's actually really good at it, and she's gotten to learn it. She's got to learn it. It's a kind of a thing. Setting background is not something it's something that you learn by just doing and by watching monitor, and you really, really start realizing that, especially when I was a second, is like I start watching movies and I start paying attention to the background instead of watching the movie. Especially big, large crowd scenes. You start thinking about, oh, look, that they had to do. How did they do that? What are they, So
I've tried that, yeah. And then I get on set and I'm like,
she does a really great job at it. But that's another big component that that the second does. If before we get into like really specific, the general thing that you're going to learn is to be part of this team. Number one, there has to be so much communication between the three of us, and so much simple communication that can be quickly said and not like, sit down, I have a story to tell you. Because we don't have time for that a lot. But also communication about what we're doing next, where we're going to. Oh, there's been a delay. There was a delay at base camp. That's going to cause a delay in, getting their props on them. So that's going to cause a delay to get on set, or whatever. And can the first adjust in such a way to give themselves room? Does he give other departments a little bit more breathing room? And that's just something it's kind of a give and take. And you have, like I said, we go back to that concept of a man on an island or a person on an island. You have to like absorb the information and then quickly make a decision or a recommendation. And I'm changing from decision to recommendation, because ultimately you're going to tell your director and your DP, this is what's occurring. This is what I recommend we do. At the end of the day, the director can tell you, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And you can go, okay, but it's still going to cost us more time. Then you go ahead and you let it go. So you're making recommendations that are the best that you think for them to save time, get quality work done, and get their film done. Okay, so you can't take it personal when they don't take your advice, even though it's gonna be egg on their face. And when they have egg on their face, you kind of walk over there with a napkin and go, it's okay, we're gonna get this done and we'll move on. Okay, that's the other part of that is of this communication part is the second is in that world when the actors first arrive, when makeup and hair just arrive. When transpo, they're usually like right there after transpo. So if there's an issue with the base camp being set up, that's going to start causing delays. Immediately, they're on that. But they're also the one that second at base is that one individual that everybody who works at base comes to for problems, concerns, questions. And sometimes it's
therapy.
It's therapy, yes. And as a first, you don't have the time to listen to all of it, but you have to start paying attention to things. And you're now using your second as that individual to go, something's up with props. I'm sorry, we keep saying props. We don't want to pick on props. Something's up with so-and-so, go figure it out. Go find out what's going on. And then they start, that second starts building a relationship with the keys on set that they will come for their little therapy session so they can bitch and complain and say, why can't we do it this way? Da, 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 da. Even though this has probably been discussed 1,000 times at production meetings and they're still questioning it. So there's a lot of not just about getting the job done, but it's also about taking care of that crew. And the best ADs that I ever worked under were the ones who totally knew their crew and totally knew how to motivate their crew and keep them moving forward. And that the crew also felt that they had their backs watched by the AD team. If it be the second coming up to the first and said, hey, so-and-so's a little concerned about this rig we're doing over there. I'm like, oh, really? Well, let's get so-and-so talking. So we start having these conversations. Because even though, as Cheyenne said, we're technically supposed to be the last word of safety, we rely on the experience and the expertise of other department heads. So if we're rigging a camera or we're doing a special type of rig, it's usually the grip department that we're talking to about that. Or even when a light's because even when an electrician is setting a light, it has to be right over the actor's head. Guess what? The electrician doesn't set that light. He just focuses it, and the grip's the ones who actually set it, right? Camera might have a concern about if you're shooting squibs or you're having an explosion, how close they are. They're going to have concerns, and you have to walk them through those things as well. And you talk with the stunt coordinators. You're also talking with special effects, and you have to immediately get a sense of their expertise. At what level are they? Do I need to hold their hand, or can I rely on them as a partner? And that's what you're looking for. All right, so that's any questions right now? We've been talking a lot. Anybody got a quick question right now before we go into like the periods? And by periods, meaning prep, production, and post, because there is some post work for ADs. Okay, no questions? Well, I'll start by answering the first question about the software. The primary software used in the industry is Movie Magic, and that's a scheduling program. It's also a budgeting program. There are other softwares out there. There are other ones trying to compete, but that's pretty much the industry standard. It is pricey. I will tell you that right now. So unless this is going to be something you're going to be doing on a regular basis, I wouldn't recommend it. But there are free tutorials that you can start getting to understand how it works and all that. Jen, is it still yearly? I don't remember.
Well, the last time I bought it, it was you bought it, and you don't have to pay. You buy it one time.
It's a one chunk fee,
it's a
right?
movie-
And
yeah.
then they just give you the upgrades.
Scheduling for Movie Magic scheduling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Budgeting is monthly. It's
But
a
budget, yeah.
subscription thing now. But yeah, and you can, I think you get two seeds. So if it's something that you're interested in doing and you've got somebody else that's interested in doing it, then if you go in together, you can split the cost. But it's like $700.
I should
So
have done that.
it's like $350 a person if you have somebody else that that wants to get into this as well. But you can do all this stuff using Excel. Excel is your friend as an AD in general anyway. As a second AD, I built my call sheets, the PR, everything is in Excel. So you can use that.
And a matter of fact, Movie Magic is an Excel based program. Once you actually understand it, it's very much like Excel. So Cheyenne, do you want to talk a little bit about, because you played with this, you did schedules in Excel. You want to talk about
that? Well, it's painstaking sometimes. No, it's good. It's good. I recommend Excel. It's so much cheaper than the arm and a leg you have to pay for Movie Magic scheduling. I don't know. What would I say about it? I mean,
well, you should talk about scheduling in general.
Yeah. So once you get brought on as an AD, you usually get brought on. Your first introduction to get brought on to a show potentially could be from a UPM who's asking you to help them do a schedule so that they can do a budget for the producers. So you might start as early as that. Most of the time though, you'll start after they've already raised their money and they got their stuff and they've given you an idea of what they're thinking schedule wise, because they started going out to make offers to actors based on that. So your first immediate pass is you're going to break down the script. And there is there's already a YouTube. I won't go too deep into it because there's already a YouTube on our YouTube channel. Mark Dahlstrom did that with a short. And he did both budgeting and scheduling with a short and kind of walk you through the theories. But I'll give you the basics components. You're breaking down every single category: actors, props, set dressing, locations, special vehicles, just cars, pets, children, because the number of extras you're thinking are going to be needed in the scene, the different costume changes that might occur. You're basing everything on that from what's on the paper and on the script. You're breaking down the script from day to night, the number of days that the movie or the story is being told. All this stuff is all things so that the chronological concept of nothing gets dropped or lost scene per scene. You're breaking it out scene by scene. It's the best process way to learn the script and know it. You know, there are some there's some very traditional ways of how to break it down by using, it's old school. I mean, I actually did it old school, where as a second, the first broke down the script, then gave me their breakdown sheets, because this is before Movie Magic, and I would have to create these little strip boards, components that were in this like trifold folder, and everything would be set up each day, each scene was its own strip, and it would have like the important priority stuff. It wouldn't have everything. It wouldn't have all the props and all that, but it would have all your cast. If there's special effects occurring, if there's special vehicles, it would have a number of extras, your location, the page count, all these things that you've calculated in a breakdown. And a page by page count, when you're looking at a script, because the other thing you're going to start doing is trying to time it in your head, how long it's going to take to shoot it. A script page has 8 eighths on it, and every scene is an eighth, right? Sometimes writers have this tendency to write and not give you a scene break. They just all of a sudden move you into a different space. So the rule that I've always been trained on is if the camera moves into another room, okay, on a cut, not, then therefore that is a new scene. And you would draw a line. You literally draw, and we used to draw a line right through every scene. So you had it down. That was the first time you read it. You were just reading the script, drawing lines for the scenes. Then you're coming back through and numbering it all. And then you're going back through and reading it. And then my advice has always been to read it like, okay, I read it one time through, just focusing on cast and individual prop pieces that are connected to that cast member, right? Then I'm going through and I'm focusing on more broader things, like, is there special effects in the scene? What would I think it's going to entail? How long do I think it's going to entail? And I start making little notes for myself on these things, so that when I'm looking at a strip board, you're looking at a condensed version of, like, I don't know, with let's say it's a 90-page script. You're looking at 100 and at least sometimes at least 100 scenes, let's just say, right? And at 100 scenes, that's 100 different individual page breakdowns that you've done for each of those scenes, filling everything in. And that's just on your first pass, on your first couple of passes.
Juan, do you want me to show a strip board? Do you want me to show?
If you got a strip board, that'd be great. Now, it's a lot easier with the computer, but even on Excel, Cheyenne and I she was sharing her Excel stories with me. I'm like, oh, that's like the old days, because you can actually strip it out and cut it out and then lay it around. Because what you start doing is, so as you're seeing right now, that's kind of just the basic information. And then you start creating this script board, which is starting to, now this is a schedule. So the first time you're doing it, you're going to do it all in story order, right? And you'll create a board that is purely story order. And you will save that board, save that version, right? Because that's also going to be useful for you in the second to track what scenes are complete, what do you owe on something that you might have to come back to, or whatever. Now I've broken everything down, and we'll just take like the very first strip there, just as an example, right? So you've got, the scene number, right? And now, so here's why it's an Apple 19. So let's just say you broke it down and you missed it, or you did realize that was actually another scene. Or let's just say in a rewrite, they put it in as another scene. And it's between 18 and 19. So because of how we number a slate, for those of you that are, every setup is usually in the back, on the back of the scene. So if it's scene 2, it'll be 2 Apple, means that's the first setup of that scene, which is later used in editorial. So as an AD, if we need to add a scene in between 2 scenes, we put Apple 19, so that it doesn't look like 19 Apple when it's on the slate, because I have been on shoots where we've gone through the entire alphabet on setups. So
and then
so
some.
Sorry, go ahead, Shai.
And then some. No, just
and then some. Yeah. So that is the reason the letter goes before the scene number. And writing programs, even Final Draft, does not do it the right way. They do it the other way, and you have to go there and manually change it. The next thing is your page count there. Exterior in the day, so that can change. If you ever see IE, I don't think we did any IEs. That's interior, exterior. That could be that somehow the shot sees both the outside and the inside of the room, or starts on the outside and works inside. A brief description of what the scene's about. Scene, that's down there, and you can always have fun with those. I do them so that I can remember the scenes. I have there's ADs that we've worked with. Jared is a great example. He's phenomenal with remembering scene numbers. I don't remember scene numbers. You tell me a sequence, I can tell you exactly what goes next and what happens next. I'm all sequence oriented. But then you have like this would be your location. Donnie's minivan is our location on a highway near Fruitland, right? And then this extra note, the fact that it's a moving shot. The number here is your cast number. So your cast gets listed. Normally, when you're breaking down a script, you're just gonna put it in order of how they pop up in the script. Later, a producer should sit you down, and you should sit down with a producer and go and find out what contractually people have to be numbered, right? And then the last is the location information. Now, these boards, you can have much more information if you want. There's another version where you can have, you know, like number of extras and other details. You can manipulate these boards to change them to different information that you feel is pertinent for you. For me, I like to keep them simple into this level right here, because that's what I need. I need to know, and especially on set when I'm looking at the board really quick, when I'm considering changes that need to maybe occur. After you've done your own breakdown stuff, guess what? Now you get to sit down with the director and go through page by page with the script, and they'll give you their input on what they're thinking is very important in the scenes. You also start finding out how they're thinking about covering it. What's the very important scene for them that they really don't want to ever be rushed at? To like maybe some critical notes on props or set dressing. I want to make sure, let's not forget, you now become that additional voice for the director of sharing their vision to the departments. Doesn't mean you're always going. You're the final. You should not ever be the final say. What you should be is just just another pass through, and another person that they can come to ask questions if they have questions from the director, and the director's unavailable. Now you've gotten that version, so you're going to go back through, make your your notes, because there's also a section for notes that you could do those. And a lot of times those notes are to be shared with the second, so that the second's aware of this stuff, because the second does not come on right away. If you're lucky, traditionally, you're looking at a first AD getting at least, in an 18-day shoot or more, you're looking at least 6 weeks. But with low budget and independent stuff, you're sometimes looking at 4 weeks. You know, then you're now having another meeting with the UPM, looking at the schedule now based on what they're budgeting and how close is your schedule going to be able to fit into that budget. And that's not even schedule, and I keep calling it a schedule because I haven't even started scheduling it yet. I've just broken it down, and now I'm making sure that all the assets that are needed to make in the movie, I am aware of them. I know what's needed for what scene, and now I'm making sure with the UPM they can financially cover that stuff. So we start having that discussion. Never gets resolved right away. You get about, I don't know, Jen, you'd say about 65% of it gets talked through, and then they got to go, I got to get back to you on that. I got to get back to you on that. So then you go away now and you start playing with a schedule that you think is best for you and per your actors. So you're trying to block all your actors in chunks. So that's what you're focusing on until you start getting the curveballs. Because now, while that has all been happening, the director's been going on preliminary scouts with the locations manager, and they're looking at locations and the DP, and they're thinking about where to put stuff. And I usually let them have like their first couple of those by themselves when they don't know exactly what they want yet. They're still looking, because I have enough stuff to do. So I get myself more organized. That way, when they're like, okay, we're down to looking at 2 or 3 locations for these specific scenes, now I get involved, because now I have to take a chance and take a look at it. But now I'm going to start getting curveballs about when locations that are chosen are available. Oh, an actor's got a contract change or has another gig that just popped up, because on a lot of movies, unless you're the big name actor, you don't own them for the whole show. So you're only paying them for like maybe a week's worth of work, and you have a 3-week shoot. You're trying to make the 3 weeks consecutive because it's cheaper for your UPM, but then all of a sudden that person's got another gig and they got to fly out. So you got to make sure that all those dates line up for yourself. Yes, Kelly. You're muted.
I know, I was trying to find it. It's been a while since I've been on Zoom. So an AD finds locations. Is that part of their job? Or is somebody, who finds locations?
There's a location manager or location scout that should be finding locations. But as an AD, I have sometimes gone out and looked for locations because I wanted to find something connected to something else, right? Here in Spokane, I do it a lot because I pretty much have shot everywhere in Spokane, so I kind of have an idea. When you're in a distant location, you need to rely on your locals, right, to give you the information. And what you have is location manager and location scout. Now they start with taking pictures, right? They take pictures, they show pictures, they put them like on a drive, usually on a Google Drive, and the directors and the DP can say, yeah, I like that, I like that, I like that. That's the first pass. Second pass is now them going out and talking to the owners and saying, hey, would you be interested? This is how many days we think it's going to be. This is when we're going to think it's going to be. Can I have the director and DP come out and look at it? At that point, that's when I get involved in going to a location. Now I'm walking into that meeting, seeing how excited they are about the location. But as Jen said, I'm looking at it as a set. Where am I sticking Video Village? Where am I sticking the cast in between scenes? Where's the gear going to go? Where can the trucks go that I don't have to move them 4 times during the shoot? Even though logistics. I'm looking at all those logistics, and in a very selfish way, Jen was 100% correct. All I care about is that set. So every place I look at it, and sometimes I poo-pooed a location because I go, that's not a shootable location for us. There's no way I'm going to get 35 people in here, plus lights, plus gear, in time and out when we're supposed to. We need to look for something better or something bigger. So I become the logistic person. And usually the UPM's there along to kind of support that, that component. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So then so you finally get the board done, you're super excited, and like I said, guaranteed you're gonna get at least 1 curveball or 2 while you're prepping. You'll do at least, before you get to what we call the official white schedule, I would say in a 6-week prep, I'm be lucky if I haven't done at least 10 different schedules. Okay. And sometimes it's complete changes because of information I've gotten. Sometimes it's me having a better understanding of the script and I start finessing things. So it's a combination of both. So you start looking because you're constantly looking at it and constantly thinking, all right, to set up, and here's something as a first, you're kind of, this is ballpark figures. This is not hard, 100% set. I have no pre-lighting. It's going to take at least 45 minutes for them to move in with the lights and the gear and the camera gets set up. So now I already know I've lost 45 minutes in my day. Every camera set up, every camera position, you calculate, it's going to take at least 15 minutes or 20 minutes to set up. So now you're starting to calculate how many shots the director's telling you from a shot list. And you're like, oh, okay, now, so how many scenes can I shove into that day? Right. And sometimes you roll the dice. You know, people will give you a hard time because I don't gamble in real life. I don't like gambling. And I was like, you guys don't understand. I gamble every day on set. I'm guessing on the number of hours. I'm guessing on the number of minutes. You know, that's enough gambling for me. But you're doing all those logistical things and figuring that all out. Plus, you're starting now to talk to department heads. What is your big concerns? What are your concerns? Like, are we doing a period piece? Are we doing the fact that it's that one character has over 15 changes? I can't afford 15 changes. Can we lose a day? So, and you're talking to every department about things like this that are on the clock at that time, which would be props, art department, and wardrobe. You start your preliminary conversations maybe with your makeup department if there's some big names so that people are aware of, right? If there are big names, you're looking at your Rolodex, who's worked with them before. Can I call them and find out what they're like? So I know what to do, you know, and I might not get all the information. I'm just getting all the contact, who we need to talk to, and then I'm going to send my second, Jen, to go do that. So this is all prep. Then we have what's called the big giant production meeting where we literally go through the script, page by page. We verbally talk about all the essential props, essential items for every scene. Departments get to ask questions based on what they're reading and maybe that didn't get discussed at the private meeting that they had with the director, which I usually selfishly make the second come on early enough to start scheduling those things. And that way they immediately start realizing that the second is the person coordinating their schedule. And that's who they need to go to. I need a meeting. I need, I need 15 minutes with the director. I need a half hour with Juan because we're worried about this thing. Okay, great. She makes sure that those meetings get set up and that they happen. And that's really our period as a first. And every step that you're doing is you're trying to know that script as best as you can, but also fully comprehend, again, the best that you can, the director's intention of how he wants to tell or she wants to tell that story, and how the DP is going to help solidify that, so that you're there as a support to making sure that they have the toys and the pieces that they need to get that done and help them get through that stage. And that's really what you're doing through prep. So there's a lot of talking and a lot of meetings and a lot of meetings like, we had this meeting already, but you're going to have to repeat it. And you have to be patient. You also start learning who your keys are and where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are, so that you know how to work with them and support them. But I like to try, I normally like to try to have the second a minimum of 3 weeks, because then they really start understanding everything else. But with budget ranges, it could be anywhere between 3 weeks to 2 weeks. And then it goes to the second.
Really helpful for a second AD to be in on those meetings with the first and the department head, just so that they can take notes and keep track of information for the first, because the first is having so many meetings and dealing with so much, and they're trying to wrangle so much information about the script and working with the director and the DP. It's helpful for another person. It's like going to the doctor. You got to have another person in the room so that they can take notes, so they know what's happening. Because if it's you alone, it goes kind of over your head. Not that it goes over the first head, but they have so much other things going on that sometimes that information gets lost or not communicated where it should be. And so it's really helpful for the second to be able to provide that extra insurance that the information that happened in this meeting is going to get relayed to the people who need to know it. And also just the scheduling, scheduling time, and making sure that people get to the right person, making sure that every department head has had a meeting with the first and the director, so they understand what they're going to be asking of them. And they can throw up any red flags, like, hey, I know you want, it's some special makeup, but that's going to take 2 hours to do, just so you know. And like Juan said, he figures it's going to take 45 minutes for the first setup. It's an hour, at least an hour. Sometimes it's an hour and a half before
Somebody has to be optimistic.
Yeah. But somebody has to be realistic.
That's the second's job, not mine.
So, yeah. And then also one other thing I thought of while everyone was talking, everyone being Juan and Cheyenne, is that even no matter what, you have to, in each one of our positions, you have to give accurate information. You can't, like, I have worked with other ADs at times that would say, oh yeah, just tell them that the cast is on their way, when the cast is still in the chair for hair and makeup. I'm like, that's not going to help them. It's like one of those things where, like, I feel like they're going to get in trouble if their cast isn't ready when they said they would be ready. And that things happen, and you have to be able to communicate clearly and accurately what is happening at the time with your department, because they can make a decision or they can make a suggestion, like Juan was saying. Have a plan for, hey, it's going to take another hour before my cast is ready because something happened. Maybe it was weather, related, that we shoot in the winter. People, we had massive delays last winter with weather, because people couldn't get to work. But giving information as soon as you have it, knowing what's happening, giving it to the first and the second so that they can be aware and prepared with another plan in order to keep moving. Because if you're just sitting there and waiting for casts that are going to take another hour, and you don't know you think they're going to be there in 5 minutes and it's going to be another hour, you're just wasting time and money and resources, and people are getting mad. So it's communication is everything from the beginning of the process to the end.
Well, and to add to that, Jen, is the rule that it's a rule. You give the wrong information once to a crew person or an actor, you've lost them. They will never trust you to be 100% after that. So it is better, and it's something even I tell the PAs, if someone asks you something, you don't know the answer for sure, you're not 100% sure, go, you know what? Let me check on that. Go away, go get the answer, come back. And even as a first, same thing. You know what? Let me go check on that. If I'm not 100% sure of it, don't want to give the wrong information. The other thing that seconds do, that I like my seconds to do, is being involved in the breakdown of extras and the looks that the director's looking for. So that already gets taken off the director's plate and my plate, and they're working with extras casting directly on this scene needs X. This is the type of people that should be in the scene. We want X amount of diversity. We want X amount of males, females, whatever it might be that the scene is asking for, that they then take care of that from that point on.
And that always depends on your director and your first AD. Sometimes some directors want to see every single extra and choose every single extra, but I'm still working with the extras casting and getting images of them and then taking them to the director, putting them in front of his face, whether it's printed or it's an email. All that just depends on the director and how they prefer it. But then they're doing it. Or else they might say, hey, I trust you. This is what I want. This is what I need. And you just do it. But it's all personalities. And kind of, I guess, to answer one of the questions, is paper still necessary on set? That also depends on personalities. We do our best to, especially today, to do everything digitally. But there are still people who have to have their sides in front of them, or actors unless they tell me specifically that they will use their device, will get a set of paper sides handed to them. I think should know.
And I think COVID actually has helped that pushed it even further, but there's certain things, like even I, as a first, I will ask for hard sides.
Yeah.
Because I need them to make notes, because I'm constantly making notes.
But then there's Shan, who is amazing at using her iPad, and she's making notes with her iPad. How many pencils have you gone through, Shai? It's all based on, how good people are with technology, and whether or not, they can do it or not. But we typically, I won't print sides for every crew member. I think normally we, on a production where we have 40 crew members, we're printing like 15 sides.
15 to 20, yes.
Yeah, 15. I remember when we used to print like 50. even though
Yeah,
you have 40
because
crew
people
members,
would-
because you had to have extras to
they would
get
go
people.
away, or they would set them down and lose their sides. But we don't cater quite that much right now. So we're trying to cut that down. But scripts, we don't have scripts printed laying around. I mean, I will only print a script if someone asks me for one.
All right. Sometimes a cast member will ask, is like, can you print me the newest draft of, and you print the whole thing right there on set.
That's fewer and fewer now than it used to be. I mean, I remember days of Z Nation where remember all those boxes full of paper scripts,
Yeah.
The colors and as soon as a script changes, you got to trash all those other, versions and put the newest one in. And yeah, it was a lot of waste. So it's nice to not do that anymore.
Yeah. And then in the old days with paper, when I was seconding, the office did it, but so did we. Like, we kept a script version. So every new rewrite comes on different colored paper, right? And there's an order of how the colors, by the order of colors, what version that is. Plus it's got date information. But all the first I worked for, they wanted on set with them, like the Bible version. So you had the white page. You did not throw away the old white page. You just literally put the color page on top of it. And at first I was like, I thought this was just stupid. This makes no sense. And I'm doing that for like a year and a bunch of different movies. And finally one movie, the director goes, can we go back to the original version? Guess who had the original version? And then we were able to get that out to folks. So, but now with electronics, it's so much easier and it's a lot better, to be honest, to work that way.
I will say I do use the iPad on set. It's great. I will say it's not a must-have software, but it's a must-have for me now. It's the most beautiful, life-changing thing I've ever had. It's called Scriptation. And I think it only works on Apple devices.
It does, because I went and took a class on Scriptation. And after the class, I go, how do I get this on my Android? They're like, oh,
yeah,
it doesn't exist on Android. I'm like, well, this was pointless.
Yeah, Scriptation is you put your scripts in it, you put your schedules in it, you can doodle on it, you can highlight, you can it's amazing. It's perfect.
And directors are using it for their stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's not just for ADs, but directors are actually, their shot lists can be done there. Their character breakdowns are all done there. So it's easy to have that all in one space.
They can insert pictures, they can insert drawings, they can insert sound effects. Anything and everything you can insert into Scriptation. And the best thing about it is when you have a new version, you upload the new version and you don't lose any of your notes. So in the old days when you'd print a script and you'd make notes by hand in a script, and then you'd get a new version, all of a sudden you got to transfer all those notes by hand. Well, you probably don't as a director, but you give it to your PA or to your assistant to do, not your AD, but your director's assistant.
But if you're worth your grain of salt as a director, you'd be transferring your own notes, because that's how you memorize it and you remember it.
That's true. We've all worked with ones and not, so
that's valid.
But yeah, it's a really good software if it's something that you're looking at doing, whether you're a director or an AD. It's definitely a really good software to look into.
It's free. There's a paid version that I refuse to pay for because I'm cheap, but it's free.
Yeah.
I paid for it. So.
There's a free trial for the paid version.
Jen, is that it for you for prep, or is there anything else you want to touch upon before we pass it on to the mass amount of prep days the second gets?
Prep. Yeah, I think that's it. You're using, a lot of my prep is used getting to know personalities and understanding who I'm working with and how I can best help them. Because no matter what, I'm always looking at how do I help each person be successful in their job? What is it that I can do that will help my first AD? And it's every AD is different, and the way that they need help is different. So how can I best help them achieve the result that they want? And the same thing with each department head. You know, there are some department heads I've worked with. I mean, I worked with a costume department that was difficult. I mean, I loved them to death, but they needed me to hold their hands, and I had to walk through everything and had to schedule their fittings a certain way, and had to. So you work a lot with how can you best support your team, your crew as a whole, to make the best thing happen. But that's, and then, yeah, and scheduling, and that's kind of it and working, you know, obviously getting to know also your cast, through, you know, the agents and through the department, the office. So the APOC, the production office coordinator or the assistant production office coordinator makes the first contact with cast. That's usually before I'm ever on. And then as soon as I come on, they'll pass the communication to me. And so then I'm dealing with, you know, agents and cast, and making sure that they have everything that they need. And we're scheduling, you know, things for them as they're coming in. You know, getting their hair and makeup tests done and their costume. Hopefully you're given enough time from the UPM and the office to get them through a costume fitting before they start work. Because things happen a lot with the director and costuming that changes have to be made before they're on set. So that's it.
Jen's answer, Connor, Jen's answer just there about doing whatever is needed to make sure that your crew is successful answers your question about it being on an indie or on a short. It's going to depend on your crew, on what their experience is, and you have to then make the judge. How much more do you need to help make sure that that person is aware of stuff, or asking them enough questions so that you're doing training at the same time. If you're on an indie set and you've got experience, you're going to be doing some training at the same time, you know, and your goal is, like Jen said, is to have that person be successful at what they're trying to do and feel like they have someone they can go to for support.
I kind of feel like and there's indie projects. There are indie projects that have budgets and have bigger budgets, and there's indie projects that don't, you know. So if you're on a low budget or a no budget indie project and you're an AD, you're doing everything. You're kind of like a producer. You're really doing everything. And there's usually only one. So there's not three, there's one. And that AD is doing the schedule, and they're making sure all the departments have what they need, and they're working with the director and or producer, if there is one, to make sure that you know, this is really what you want. You know, what's on the page is really what you want. Because sometimes, you know, in the writing, they may say, oh yeah, well, I know it's there. It says I need this, but I really don't need that. I need this. So it's really holding their hand and getting through everything. Everything. And then also, I mean, a lot of times on an indie low budget, I would always advocate that you have a call sheet. It doesn't always happen on indie low budget projects. It may just be, hey, everybody show up at this time. I would absolutely recommend that you always have a call sheet. But that's something that the AD will do on a low budget project. So you kind of, I mean, and the other thing too, a lot of times this comes up, like what's your time? How much time do you spend when you're on a project? Is it an 8-hour day? Is it a 10-hour day? It's a 24-hour a day. You're just pretty much always on, whether or not you're actually working and answering questions or working on your computer 24 hours a day. No, but your mind is always working and you're always thinking about what's coming next and what do I need to do. So it is never something where it's like, oh yeah, sorry, I'm off the clock, because you're not off the clock.
And sadly, when you're a great second like Jen is, you become that person that people call all the time off hours. As a first AD, I can ignore certain calls except for Jen's and the directors and the producers, right? Anybody else calls me, like, I'll deal with you later. But Jen gets that call, and even it's been times where I've ignored the call and they call Jen, and Jen calls me. So and so's trying to connect home. I know I ignored their call. They need to talk to you. So fine, but she's right. You don't stop, and even as the first, you kind of really you get a little. You can get away from it a little bit more than the second can, but you're constantly looking at the next day already. You're already looking at the next week. You're already thinking about the next location move. Everything dealing with logistics from top to bottom. Where the crew's eating, what not is the food going to be there at what time? I mean, because all that affects your time on set. And then there's the second.
Yes. Tell us about your prep, Shy.
Look, man, sometimes I don't get prep. I'm gonna be honest. I have been told it's like, usually a second doesn't get prep, and I'm like, cool. You sure you don't need me for a couple days? But I sometimes I will be within that first week, whether it's the full 5 days or 3 days or the day before. I will spend that time picking up things that the second AD needs off their plate. I will go and run, and kind of like a messenger, an errand runner. Or I spend most of the time prepping the PR, the production report. And I'll have that all set up and confirmed with everyone. If I press that button. Okay. Yeah. I don't have much prep. I can be honest.
Yeah, I try to force to have at least a minimum of 3 days for the second, because there is a lot of stuff that they also start making sure our production kit is set up.
Yeah,
we have everything we need. Is talking to locations. Now that becomes an extra set of eyes and ears for me when we're on a scout to say, all right, I'm planning to put Video Village over there, and I'm planning to put so and so over there. Then I can focus and listen to what the DP and the director are talking, and that second is now telling that information already to the crew. Again, setting up that channel of communications already. On set, Cheyenne's your person to go to, right? Offset and the bigger questions of schedule, Jen's a person to go to. So
sometimes I don't get to go on the scout though. I just want to bring that up.
I know. It's all about money. It's always about money. And at the end of the day, the more your AD team knows from top to bottom everything that's happening together as a unit, the stronger your production is going to be, and the stronger that your director is being taken care of. So those of you out there who are directors, you want that solid AD team that is out there fighting for you the causes sometimes that you need an AD to fight for, which is usually time. It's usually about time. And how can we get them that time? Right? And if you're a producer, you want to have that AD team that knows how to do that balance between taking care of your director, but also taking care of your pocketbook and your budget. Because they are the ones who should be warning you, like, dude, you're going to hit overtime if we don't get going in these scenes. There needs to be an outside, beyond my pay scale conversation. Needs to happen. Again, you're making recommendations. And ultimately, the powers that be, being executive producers, and a director, will make the final call. Right?
Hey, Jamie's got a question about dealing with special medical needs or allergies or things like that. Definitely, it's something that, I mean, as a producer type or as a production coordinator in prep, you're sending out forms that are asking about people's allergies and asking about medical needs. So hopefully you have that information before you start production, so that you can make sure that everyone who needs to know has that information. So your first AD knows, hey, so-and-so has medication that they've got to take. This is where it's going to be. If it's something that comes up on the day, that information is very serious. It gets taken directly to the first AD via the second. If it's something that comes to me and I'm not with them, then it goes directly to them so that they can be aware and make sure that whatever needs to happen happens.
And then usually if it's a kind of an allergy concern of some kind, once I'm made aware of it, like, I'll either talk to the set medic directly or have Cheyenne, the second talk, so that the medic is aware of the potential issues, right? Like if people are allergic to bees and they have to have the shot, whatever that might be. But the more this is really where your production and your office and your producers should be getting this information, like Jen said, beforehand. So you're doing that beforehand. And basically, if you're going to you want to give people credit anyway, you're going to give people credit on your project, even if it's a little indie or a short. But what you can do is send them a form and say, okay, fill out your information. Give me how you want your name in the credits. What position are you being credited for? So what's your phone number? So you're going to put all this information on the crew list anyways. And then some of the questions at the bottom are like, do you have any allergies? Are you allergic to certain type of foods?
Emergency contact and all that stuff.
Yes, emergency contact.
And that's obviously, on a short or an indie project that doesn't have the budget. Probably most indie projects, if they're not union, are not going to necessarily have a medic on set. But you've got to have that it's really important to have that form set up and sent out at the beginning of the project. Before the project begins, like in prep, but before anyone works, it's important to get that information just so that you have that ahead of time. Does that answer your question, Jamie?
Yeah, I've worked with people who come to set and all of a sudden you don't know that they have diabetes or you don't know that they have an allergy to something that you have on set. So I'm just trying to facilitate better communication with that ahead of time. So since we do micro budgeted films, as you know, so I'm just trying to be more.
Yeah, it's like a single sheet that goes out to those people. Everybody's going to work on your sheet that just gives you all their personal information for the credits and everything, and then just tag those questions on there at the end, and just make somebody dog birds that after the fact.
Yeah,
make sure that whatever project you're working on, if you haven't seen that form come through, ask whoever is asking you to work on the project if you can have one to go through everybody. I understand it's not something that everybody is probably thinking about, but it's important. And so if you're asked to work on a project and you haven't seen a form like that, then suggest it so that it gets done.
And it's becoming even more of important to be done even on the shorts and stuff, being aware because of just food restrictions and dietary restrictions on certain people. Now I will say use common sense on that. And I will give you an example where I had an individual who was on a raw diet, right? They were on a raw diet. And so we tried to comply with it until the chef from the catering came and said, I can't afford their raw diet. I can't afford it. I can't afford doing this. So I had to talk with the union. And the union said, no, you don't have to supply that, but let's have a conversation with her. So I made a deal with her. I said, I can't afford all these items that you are requesting. If you want to purchase them, catering will hold on to them and serve you and feed you. We just can't afford to pay for it. So that's something, even as when you're people out there who are producing, there is a common sense line you also have to draw. Okay.
Yeah.
Where it is, but at least give it the decency and the courtesy of listening and trying to see if you can come up with a solution that's good.
When you're working on a bigger project and you are background and you have medication that you need to take or you're diabetic, sometimes I've had other background people say, who do I ask? Like I need to go take an insulin shot, and they've been too scared to come forward and say anything because they're in a holding tank, or whatever, and they don't know who to say. So do you just talk to the extras wrangler, or who do you talk
Yeah,
to?
whoever's immediately connected to you, you should be talking to. So it's an
Okay.
extra wrangler, or if it's a PA. But that also, those individuals should, they're the ball
There
gets
was
dropped a little bit here because they should be making sure that their agency says that, so that it's on the sides. And when it shows up on sides, Jen now as a second gets the sides, and she could be aware of, and immediately she makes Cheyenne, the wrangler, myself, and medic all aware of this situation. And it's not a big deal. The more we
No.
know, it's the more that we can be helpful.
okay.
It's all just communication, and it always comes down to if somebody needs to get information to someone, if they don't, if they don't have a wrangler right there, they always should just come to the second. The second is where that information should go, and then that they can make sure that anyone else who needs to have that information gets it.
Good to know. People always ask me, like, who should I talk to? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'll ask if I ever am in
Yeah.
this kind of a meeting again. So good to know. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Uh-huh.
So the question about stress. Let's just say I handle it better now than I used to. So it's you got to find your own path. The stress. I will say that you need to be in a healthy place with yourself mentally and all that to do the best job you can. So you have to figure out how to handle stress in life, period. And those same skill sets can be used for this job. The most important part, though, is that the realization that at a certain point, we're not saving lives here. We're not doing anything that is going to drastically change the world. We're just playing at making a movie. That's what it is. So you got to remember, the best advice I ever got was exactly that. I was on set on a shoot. There was an indie shoot. The director and the first AD got in an argument, so the AD quit. I had to step in as the AD by being also the UPM. We were falling behind, and this very extremely wonderful DP was visiting the set, who's also Academy nominated, and he could just tell, and he just put his hands on the back of my shoulders and just gave me a rub, and then just whispered in my ear, "It's just a movie." And it was enough for me to go, breathe out. All right, just chill out, And then there's always Cheyenne when she gives me the eye. She's like, "Okay, calm down."
I think I would add that, we are a team. I mean, we're a team. The ADs are a team, but the PAs are part of that team as well. And if there's things that if you're getting stressed, I mean, if I'm getting stressed with something, I can talk to Cheyenne. I can talk to my first, but I really try to keep the stress away from my first. So if it's a big deal, I talk to my first. But I'd talk to my second, and talk to the PAs. And usually it's because there's too much going on and you need help getting something done. And so that's a really good way to kind of let go of some of that stress, is to share it, with, then it becomes not stressful.
Yeah.
And the other thing is really also, just doing, you're doing the best you can, and you're working hard, and everybody's on the same team. So we all have the same goal. And so, keeping that in mind, and working with that goal in mind is the best way I've found to deal with the stress. And it's going to end. It's going to end at some point.
Yeah,
This is not like a continuing, I mean, that's unfortunate. I mean, fortunate and unfortunate, right? We're in this business where we have a project and it's very stressful for a short amount of time, and then it's gone. And then you have however long, sometimes too long, between until the next show. And then you've got stress again, and then it's gone. So think about your vacation.
Yeah. But I think what Jen was saying is important. It's also being aware as a first, being aware, do I need, like, if shit totally hits the fan do I need to know exactly what happened right then and there? Or do I need to just know what my circumstances are so I can come up with a solution and then move on? And then later, at some point, go back and visit and find out exactly what happened.
What happened?
Yeah. There's a lot with the second, there's a lot more of that happening on a regular basis between the first and the second. Like, how come this didn't happen? And then you get the information because you're in between setups. I personally like going back at the end of the day and sitting down with the second at their station. I'm like, all right, how was your world down here? What issues did you have? And 9 out of 10 times they start telling me what the issues. And now in my head, I'm like, oh, that's why this happened. Oh, that's why this happened. Oh, why this happened. So as opposed to me coming in and saying, hey, why did this happen? I'm finding out their world, their experience, and then putting it together like, okay, that's why all these other things occurred, which is also the reason why I say if you're going to first, you really should do all 3 jobs, because then you have a better appreciation and understanding for that second when you're talking to them, you know. And sometimes those are conversations that extend beyond the hours, and you have to go somewhere, have a glass of wine, and just go, okay, let's just go through this. All right, so that's pretty much all the prep stuff. I mean, we could talk about production, but it is constant, basically for all 3 of us. It's constantly finding out what the challenge is, what elements of the challenge can I control, and how do we keep moving forward. The one thing you're doing is just trying to keep that train constantly moving forward. And there was somebody who asked something about, if not on set, if not doing it on set, how do you keep your tools sharp? There are other, I'll tell you this, if I didn't do this business, I think I probably could do event planning super easy, you know, because it is, I mean, it's, you know, it's logistics, kind of lining things up. If you like the theater, my advice has always been for folks to stage manage, because that's another level of just dealing with logistics, dealing with personalities, and then actually running a live show, right? The beauty of the theater is like you really learn like really to keep yourself on tune, because there is no take 2, right? So if you're a stage manager and you're calling the show, you got to know your script, you got to know your stuff, you got to know, you got to adjust to the actor. The light didn't come on that was supposed to come on. Should we jump the next cue? I mean, these are all very similar thinking patterns. It's all about solving the problem the best you can with the resources you have and moving on. And experience is the only thing that's going to give you of like, how do I solve that problem? You know, my favorite one is people that I did it as a PA because I was told by the second AD to go do it. There was a dog barking, and we couldn't. There was nobody home, and the dog kept ruining takes. But he was out in the yard, so he goes. It was she. She goes, go to craft service. I want you to make a bunch of peanut butter sandwiches. And I go, what about jelly? No jelly, just peanut butter. And I just slapped it on the bread and went over and tossed it over the fence. That dog was quiet for the next 10, 15 minutes eating peanut butter. Didn't hurt the dog, didn't do anything, but it got him quiet. That was one example. Another one, I was a second, and there was somebody with some lawnmower or blower thing started, and my AD said, send somebody over there. He goes, no, never mind. I want you to go over there. Go. And I start running over there. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm like, just start talking to them, explaining them what we're doing. And what he did is, while I was talking to the person, because I had to turn the machine off, we're talking, I'm telling them about the movie and who's in it and how long we're going to be here, how long are they going to be there. The next day, we're talking 5 minutes, and they've gotten the shot off. You see? So those are things that you learn those just by experience and having things like that happen to you.
From a second perspective, I think the things that you can do to prepare or be, you know, it's constantly like becoming an expert in Excel, being able to manipulate things, you know, quickly, form builder, thinking about things outside the box. I mean, that's kind of like what Juan was saying. And I mean, the one thing that I got from a UPM friend told me, look, you have to be prepared that something is going to go wrong every single day. Every day, you have no idea what it's going to be. It's going to be something you didn't think about. You just have to be prepared to think about it critically, make a decision, and move. And obviously sometimes the decision isn't yours, but oftentimes, like, so Juan, when he's on set with the director's got to make the decision. At base camp, they're shooting on set. So I have to make a decision. I can't stop and ask him because he's busy. I can ask my UPM maybe, but I've got to make a decision and move. And sometimes, in hindsight, you think about it, you're like, oh, I could have made a different decision, or I could have made a better decision. But in the moment, you're losing time. And so you have to just be good with moving. Because the longer you sit and wait and try to make, second guess yourself or second guess somebody else, you're killing time that is really valuable. So, yeah.
No, go ahead. No, I was going to say the valuable. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It's chess, though.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to make this move. What ramifications are going to occur beforehand? After I make that move.
Yeah.
Right. There's going to be a cause and effect, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So, depending on, that's why you defer with the DP and or with the director if it's a major thing. If it's a department thing, maybe you're just talking to the key of that department, right? If it's a bigger overall strategy, I know poor Cheyenne's been brought over. I'm like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Now go lock up and come back with some thoughts on that. You know what I mean? It's like, use the resources of the people around you. You don't have to be the one with the answer. Your job is to find the best answer that it is. If you don't have it, then talk to the resources around you to see what people might have to help to make sure you get it done.
Yeah. Kelly, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just kind of curious because, to shadow or, be on set to, observe and, to get experience. How does one go about doing that?
Be a PA. Be a PA on a set and you're just a giant sponge. I mean, that's how I came up the ranks. And I'm going right into Jackson's question. I chose the AD route because very similar to my directing mentor said, you should stage manage in theater. And then I looked in film what the department was like that. And I went with the AD because it's very similar. You're very closely working creatively to that person. But I started as a PA and I PA'd and was the giant sponge. I made friends. I'd ask questions of departments when they were available. I went to college for film and theater and television, but I telling you right now, I learned everything I know on set. I don't care what books you read or what's going on. That's really where it's at. And then that helps you because you're in a position, it's the perfect position. There's no pressure on you. You get told what to do, just do it well. And if you screw up, be honest and be upfront about it and and confront your immediate bosses about it. But you get to be a sponge and just watch things happen with no pressure on it. It's almost like being in an interactive video and just observing as things are occurring.
That's on a bigger scale, right? PA on a bigger shoot. But
I started my low budgets in LA. That's how I started.
You can also PA on low budgets or no budgets here, but you can also produce low budgets and no budgets here. I mean, you be in the room with the people that are putting the projects together, help with those things. even on bigger things too, like union things that are here. If you're interested, I mean, work in the office, be a PA in the office if that's available. The office is a place where you will learn a lot from pre-production through production. I mean, you're not going to learn the intricacies of the set like you will as a set PA, but you'll learn more of the producer side and the things that the paperwork side, the things that happen on that end.
And you overhear conversations that you probably shouldn't be overhearing because you're in the office and it just happens. But it allows you to learn about the whole other side of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Cheyenne. I hope that link works. Kelly, if it doesn't, we'll get it to you. Yeah. I mean, in production, I have, if anyone's interested, I mean, I can go through the anatomy of a call sheet. If that's something that people are interested in seeing. I mean, that's okay. Hold on. Let me can share it real quick. All right. So I'll go through this quickly. A call sheet has several like sections that you need to be concerned with. So the first section is producers, production office, the nearest hospital, crew parking, base camp, the script version, what day it is, what day of the month or the date actually. If there's breakfast, what time it is, what time the shooting call is. You notice that the shooting call on this call sheet's an hour and a half after the general crew call. So once 45 minutes got doubled. The script version, the schedule version, so that everybody knows what they're looking at, what they're working off of is the right thing. There are 2 phone numbers on this call sheet. I think those are the only 2 phone numbers anywhere. No, I lied. Because this was during COVID, there were the health and safety phone numbers as well. But the 2 phone numbers normally that you'll see are the second AD and the location manager. So if you're lost, you call the location manager or the second AD. Any other questions, you call the second AD. No visitors on set. That's usually a standard across the board, usually on bigger projects, unless they're pre-approved by the UPM. It's got just some basic information. The weather, what sunrise and sunset, that helps with, are we going to be able to get everything we need? Or do we need things at night? So we need to know what time the sun sets. So that's all information that is important to have. The next section, I just duplicated these and highlighted them. So it's the same call sheet and we're just moving down the line, is the actual schedule for the day. This matches the one-liner, the strip schedule that I showed earlier, exactly for the day. So if you remember, it started with A19. This is the same day. It starts with A19, and this is the information for each scene. I see a mistake right now. Cheyenne didn't correct me. I'm missing a line.
I wasn't going to say nothing, but
yeah. It's got your location. We had 2 locations that day. Location 1 was on the highway. Second location was a house. These are the cast numbers that correspond with the next section. So you know who's in each scene. The little dash underneath there was no extras called for this day. So no extras. There was, this is the total number of pages that we plan to shoot that day. All the scenes. The banners are obviously when something is moving or changing, and the first AD will oftentimes banner things out. Sometimes they won't, and it'll be something that as a second, if it seems like it's important information that the whole crew needs to have, then I'll put a banner in there. Sometimes I'll put too many banners and the first AD goes, nah, it's too many. I don't need that. But oftentimes it's like if the cast has a change, a big change, and it's going to take any time, I like to put a banner in there with the approximate time I think it's going to take for the change. so that everyone's aware, including the first, including the director, including, you know, the rest of the crew on set, that, hey, we've got this cast was working. Now they need to go away for a half an hour and they're going to come back. So is there something else they can shoot? Can they get inserts? Can they do anything while they're waiting on the change to happen? The next section is the cast section. This is where I've worked with the first AD and I know what time he wants to have the cast on set. You see a column for blocking. Sometimes they'll ask for a different blocking call. So they may want to call the actors early for blocking, then send them away, and they're not going to actually start shooting the scene until later, you know, whatever time they're asking for them. So all this information is worked out with the departments. So the hair, makeup, costumes, that's what this call is right here. It's hair, makeup, wardrobe. That's what time the actor should be arrive and be in hair, makeup, and wardrobe. And what I mean by in hair, makeup, and wardrobe is in the trailer getting their makeup done, or in getting into their costume and then going into the hair and makeup trailer. This was obviously when we had testing for COVID, and so this was a note of who needed to test, and if there was a specific time that they needed to test. So obviously, cast number 14, this was her first time coming to set. She had to test before she could go to hair, makeup, and wardrobe. So she had to test at 11:12, so we'd get a result before she went to hair, makeup, and wardrobe. And she was only coming for a fitting. So this information is really important. The next section is extras and department notes. So department notes, those are all those details that the first AD outlined or lined out in the schedule when they did their breakdown. So those notes go here. So each department every day looks at that section. Actually, they need to look at the prelim. So the preliminary call sheet comes out on the day for the next day. They need to look at that section on the prelim and say, oh, I need to have this and this and this tomorrow. What about this? If they have questions, or if they say, oh no, we nixed that, we changed that, we don't need that thing that the first AD says they need. Then I would, as the second, go to the first and say, hey, just want to confirm you don't need this item that is in your schedule because the department said you guys don't need it anymore. Just so there's no surprises on the day.
Jen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but because sometimes it occurs where departments will talk directly to a director on the side and they make a decision and never inform the AD team. So we're the last to know. So we're running on a concept that we've had at our other meetings. So that's why it's really important for Jen to go from department to department, making sure nothing's changed, nothing's adjusted from at some point.
Yeah, or sometimes it could have been something that the first AD did know about, but it just wasn't important to make a change to the whole schedule for it. So just, you know, there could be lots of different things, but this is important to make sure that the call sheet's accurate so that when you're shooting, you have all the information that you need, and you're able to keep moving and you're not stopping because somebody doesn't have something that they are supposed to have. And then the next section is the advance schedule. And this is helpful because the department head can also look ahead, but looking at the call sheet and see, oh, okay, we're shooting scene 91 tomorrow. So I know in scene 91, I'm going to need the foreclosure sign. I'm going to need, XYZ. And so it's a helpful for looking ahead. And in every, call sheet's a little bit different. This one, I had a space for advanced notes. So I could have on here advanced notes that were big notes, important notes, like we were going to need a background car for the next day. So talking to transportation, do we have that van that we need for tomorrow? So it's important to kind of keep things moving and work together with everyone.
You're covering your own butt for the AD department, but you're also covering everybody else's butt by having those conversations.
Yeah. And then the back of the call sheet. So this is every single person on the production is on the back of the call sheet. So that is producers, executive producers, all the different levels of producers. These little numbers, those are the people that are actually on set. And those numbers add up to this number for catering. So that catering can look at the preliminary call sheet and say, oh, I've got 75 people for lunch tomorrow and breakfast. Although not everybody eats breakfast. They still have to have it. So then it goes through each department. So the assistant directors from UPM to our PAs, the script supervisor, the camera department, VTR, which isn't on every shoot, but some shoots, sound department, electric, grip, additional labor, which is something that it's labor that you don't always have, but you'll have it on that day. I know why
That
you're
quote of
laughing.
the day is gold.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? Because Juan's not usually relaxed. Quote of the day, gotta have that. Costume department, hair and makeup, art department, construction. You'll see OC, that's own call, not on call. It's their own call. They're taking their own call. So that's usually like the production designer, the art director, post-production. They're not working on my schedule. They're working on their own schedule. And that's worked out with the UPM. But for the call sheet, I'm not giving them a time to show up. So that's why it says that. And then per whatever. Gosh, who was EK? What was the purpose for that? That's interesting.
Art coordinate. Oh,
Who was EK? I don't know. That should have been probably JT, but usually it's per the department head.
Yeah.
So, construction, Vince DeFelice was the art director for this. And so the prop maker, she was getting her call time from him. So that's why it would say per somebody. Yeah. And then on this particular call sheet, the things in pink, those were people that needed to test. That's why they're highlighted in pink for COVID. They had to test. Yeah, transportation. A lot of times under transportation, you would also list all of the equipment. And for some reason, they asked me not to include the equipment on this call sheet. So a lot of times you would have every single piece of equipment that you're using on the day would be on the call sheet as well. This is something that we don't have to have right now anymore for COVID. So this is all just information that that is important that people have. Obviously, also the information from the unions. If you have things that you need to report, you have the contact numbers that are here for you if you need to report anything. So it's a lot of information. It's a lot of things that have to happen every day. And the worst thing in the world that you can have happen is someone say, I don't have time to read that.
That's when all right, that's when you call me. It's something to point out to, like, this call sheet is pretty massive. This was a big shoot, a lot of stuff, a lot of crew, a lot of people, a lot of moving pieces. But Jen would have to have these call sheets done usually by lunch. So a pass, right? We usually call it, it's the prelim call sheet, because that's the one that goes out to everybody, so everybody can start looking at it, asking questions and stuff. And ideally, in a perfect world, she's talked to all the departments by the time I get to look at the call sheet, so that she's incorporated whatever she feels is necessary to adjust for the departments based on what I'm hoping the schedule to be. And then we can have our own conversation about adjustments and why things were adjusted a certain way.
And shows like this, I will tell you that I have a preliminary call sheet done the night before. So the night before so basically on day 1, I have a preliminary call sheet for day 3 done day 1, end of night. Because that way I can give that prelim to my first. My first can do a pass and say, oh yeah, this looks good. Now just give it to the department heads, and I can send that out like at the top of the day, the next day, so that they have time to look at it before lunch. So I can get their notes at lunch. So I can implement their notes at lunch and then give a final, hopefully a final version to my first AD at lunch or right after lunch. So then I'm just waiting for the rest of the day to happen to make sure nothing gets pushed or changed on the next day, so I can make those changes quickly, and that's all I have to change before it goes out at the end of the night. And to answer your question, Josh, this is in Excel. This is I've created this in Excel.
And I'm sure, like I had call sheets that I created, and then other ADs added to it. So we started growing. So things morph. You can find whatever, you can make your call sheet much simpler. It's got to be the nuts and bolts of all information needed for that day worth of shooting. I highly recommend, if you're doing this short, just do a quick little call sheet. There's nothing wrong, because then it's you actually logistically planning your day. Now you start seeing how you have to think about stuff after you've experienced having done your short, right? So they save your short's only 3 days. Making 3 call sheets and then out comparing what you thought you could do on paper and what really happened on set, that's where the learning starts. That's pretty much production for us, right, Chai? There's nothing else to add besides making sure that everybody gets out in time and turns in their time cards and all that.
The
lovely
time cards, do your time cards.
It could
Yeah.
be easier that people would want to get paid.
You would think. I do have a PR, but I don't know if we want to.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go the post. And the reason, because I know it's in production, but really that PR plays an important part in post components. So once the principal photography is done, normally the first AD is done. And he's off and away. The second should have at least a couple of days of wrap, because they have to gather all the last information if additional call sheets were made or a blue call sheet was made for changes, and have to prepare stuff so that the office makes sure it has everything that they need. That's usually between a day or 2, depending on the size of the show. Right, Jen? Am I missing anything that you guys really do for the wrap? At least that
No, I mean it's making sure that the last PR, which is from the second, the last PR is submitted, and making sure that all the equipment's been returned to the office or to the production facility, making sure all the walkies are accounted for and returned. And those are, that's kind of it for the second, and then they're done. Making sure there isn't any like extra holdouts of paperwork that need to be done. Like if there's any exhibit G's for travel that didn't get done, or making sure that everything, and exhibit G's are what SAG actors get paid on. So if you're working on a SAG show, you have to do a specific time card for them, which is called an exhibit G. And that it's just crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, and making sure that the office is good with you. And then you're done.
And usually you get to keep, if not the second, at least a PA to help, like with the gear, to check in gear and stuff like that. So that's about for the second. And then, for the second, the PR, the reason I wanted to keep it, because it is a very important document when you're doing production at a level that you have finance, and you have created a company, you have LLCs involved. This is an important document. So Shai, take it away.
Okay. Let me do it again. Here we go. Oh, I didn't take the time to highlight it Jen did. I'm sorry. I'll briefly go through it. This is what I work on as a second at the end of the night. After everybody goes home, I spend at least another hour filling out this thing. It takes me a while, whatever. As Juan said, this document is basically for like the head honchos up there to know where their money is being spent and how it's being spent, what went wrong during the day, if anything went wrong. And yeah. So I went with day 6 because Dreamin' Wild on the first week was kind of wild. So I went to week 2. So yeah, self-explanatory what the day was that we worked, blah, blah, blah. If we were on schedule, how many days total we've worked, if we were behind or ahead. All these lovely people, the producers, yada, yada. When we began production, when we were originally supposed to have it completed, and sometimes there can be a revised completion date. That's always fun. If something happens, you need to push. This section here is taken from what we shot it's from the call sheet. So on day 6, sorry, I didn't use day 1. It would have been helpful. But you just kind of put what scenes, you group the scenes together, if they were interior, exterior, and you group them together based on the set location. Like these were both 57 and 57 part. These were all in the practice place, and it was a flashback in Joe Emerson's house, the real location. Yeah. Then you go to this daily time breakdown. These are times that you keep track of during the day, and you reference with the script supervisor the exact times. So the crew call, that was taken from the call sheet. That's when general crew call was at the top of the call sheet. Shooting call was also on the call sheet. It was 7:00 a.m. this day. We ended up getting our first shot off 46 minutes later at 7:46. So we were 46 minutes behind what we thought we were going to do for whatever reason. Your lunch period. I will say right before this, I noticed that we tried something new on this shoot where we did the hour lunch. Is not typical.
That was when we were in Fruitland. Right?
Yeah.
Season that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Normally 30 minutes.
Normally a 30-minute deal.
And it's 30 minutes from what we call the last man in. So the last union position that actually grabs their plate and starts hitting their table, that's when the clock starts for that half hour. So really, as an AD, you're always calculating lunch being really 45 minutes because it takes that much time to get that last man in.
Yeah. And then this is the first shot from when we're back from lunch. So we got out of lunch at 1:35 and we didn't end up shooting anything until basically 2:30. And this is when camera officially wraps. So when the AD says that's a wrap for the day, that's the time that you put. If BCAM had a separate wrap, like if we had a separate BCAM unit and they wrapped early or later for some reason, they would go there. I have never worked on a shoot where we had a dinner period. Well, just me, maybe.
Yeah. So basically, on a union shoot, you have to feed the crew. It's a 6-hour period, and they must be fed. So if you know you're going to go over, you might take a dinner break, and sometimes it's called a walking dinner because it's shorter. It's not the full half hour, right? But then you have to be out by a certain time. But all these times need to be kept because that'll be dependent on what's on their timesheets, and accounting will also be using this to refer to it.
Mm-hmm. This last person here, this is not last person from lunch, but this is the last person that was physically working like on set. So after wrap, the last person to leave, which is usually the person dumping the footage, They usually have a couple hours after we wrap to dump footage. Travel time. So that's complicated. There's, I don't know if I want to go into that. No, okay, complicated. Moving on. This portion here is from the script supervisor and their notes. We're keeping track of how many scenes total there are, how many we've omitted, how many we've added, and the new total, and how many we shot that day, how many have been shot throughout the production. We track that whole thing. So on day 6, we were up to a total of 29 scenes that we have shot, 21 pages that we've shot, and the script supervisor like times the script too, and how many minutes estimated that we have shot. So day 6, we've shot 34 minutes and 26 seconds worth of film. And how many setups too. This is kind of my favorite part of the PR because it's interesting to see what we've shot and how much we've actually done.
It's the part that the first AD cries about.
Yeah. we missed no. Like this part, that's the part you cry about, your ode piece. We didn't shoot 51 part or 135 part. It's fine. Any notes that were had from the script supervisor? This is the data portion that we track. How many cards were shot with camera, how many cards shot with sound, the data that they have accumulated. This is the cast time card portion. So this comes from what Jen was referring to, the Exhibit G. I basically pull the numbers from there and plug it in here. So this is showing when they showed up and sat in the hair makeup chair or went through costumes, when they were called to set, when they were wrapped from set, and when they actually left from the day, you know, through, they got to get out of their hair and makeup, they got to get out of wardrobe, whatever, get back into their regular self. Tracks their meal periods. If they're distant, we track from when they leave the hotel to when they get to the base camp to when they leave base camp and when they're back at their hotel. And then this is like if we had a minor on set that day, so they have to have tutor time and rest period and all that good stuff. Specific notes, blah, da, 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 da. Background, if we have extras that day, which we did, we see all their good stuff. Their time card basically is shown here as well. Oh, we're on the back of the PR. I'm trying to go through fast. I'm sorry. This is another, basically a recap of the same thing. So when the call time was lunch period, the lunch last person would go here as well. And when we were actually back in, so it'd be 30 minutes after the lunch last person. Of course, wrap, travel time, yada, yada, yada. This is basically the cruise time card. So this is why I harass people every single night. I text them, please turn in your time card because then I can actually finish my job and plug in times that they have given. So this is for accounting and for production, for counting, to look and see if there's any discrepancies between, you know, what the cast put down. If yeah, go ahead, Juan.
No, I was agreeing.
Oh, I was like, wait a second. Yeah, this is for, yeah, what I just said. Trying to go through it fast. And this is a fun thing too. This is also another one of my favorite parts, is saying what has happened during the day. So notes, delays, adjustments, everything goes here, and it's beautiful to track at the end of the day. So you put any safety meetings that were had. So every single shoot should have a general safety morning meeting at the top of the day that an AD would do. The first AD would go through and say, if there's any sort of safety notes that need to be had, if there's like location issues, like you're shooting next to a cliff, don't go next to the cliff, or there's guns that day, stunts, all sorts of good stuff. Vehicles, we're on an open road, we're going to be shooting while next to an open road. All these things are addressed at a safety meeting in the morning, and a good AD would address it again right before it's about to happen. Like if a stunt scene is about to happen, it's good to bring everyone together, do another meeting, and address it again in more detail, and have that specific department go over any safety concerns that they have and the protocol that needs to follow. And then I put stuff like our sound person had a damaged lav mic. Somebody went to the doctor and they have an issue where our boom op can't lift his arms above his head, which is a pretty important thing because it affects his job. You gotta have your arms above your head to do that. Any sort of like medic thing that's happened, if somebody got injured on set, a medic would fill out that type of report and I would put that here. Any change in crew, like if they were re-rated, if somebody had to, like for instance on this show we had a PA step into an SFX role for a couple of days, so he got re-rated and bumped up to an SFX person. That would be listed here so that somebody would know we're paying them that additional thing, and that's where they would see where their money went. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the gist. I don't want to keep everyone here, so me rattling on about this, but.
So if you see the connection, guys, the call sheet is what we plan to do. The PR is what we actually did. And it's used for more than just financial purposes. It's also used to communicate on the larger budgets. If there's a bond company, so usually attached to it on the bigger show. So they're tracking to know if you're on schedule, making sure things are going. Accounting can also start getting an estimate on, and the UPM can start estimating overtime. How much more overtime are we doing on a daily basis than planned? A first AD we should be looking at like how long, why was it an hour and a half before we got our first shot? So what could we have done to change that by looking at these numbers? These are all statistics and numbers that you can use to figure things out. And everybody in production, the AD team, the producers, the UPM, and accounting would be looking at that. It is also technically a legal document, so that if questions get asked later if let's just say someone got hurt and there was all this stuff that occurred on the set, this document would carry everything. There would be additional pages to this document to have. And that is something that has been used in court cases when things have occurred on set. Because that's how we know, besides hearing it from everybody on paper, this is how it occurred. The union might ask to look at the PRs in case they're concerned about safety, because they're saying, oh, you guys aren't having your safety meetings. So they could be used. So it is a very important document besides just being for finance. It is the culmination of everything that has happened in that day, right? For your guys' super indie stuff, I don't think it is as necessary. Well, I would stress that a call sheet should be done. And the same thing with the short. They should be done. This stuff is now where you're getting into a position where you're dealing with potential legal issues, financial issues, as well as just documentation to protect the company that's producing the show.
I think the other thing I would say is that it's really good, even on indie and short projects, to do it. If if any position that you're working in is something that you want to do on a larger production, because you can use those call sheets to track the days that you have worked.
That's true. That's right.
If
Yep.
you know, no matter what position that you're working in, if you're on a call sheet, I mean, you get into some more technical issues. You should be paid for your work, so you got to have a copy of your pay stub and all that. But if you have call sheets, that at least proves that you've done the job, and can potentially help you get onto referral lists with unions if they'll allow it. But if you don't have that documentation, you won't even have that chance. So it's something I would say is important to do on smaller projects as well, just so you have documentation of what each person did.
That's kind of, I mean, we way longer than we thought we were gonna go. But
That's a lot of information, you guys. Thanks for hanging in there so long.
yeah,
Really
and I know
appreciate
it's a lot. I do highly recommend, if you're interested in further interest in this, watch Dulcim's two videos on our YouTube channel, which he talks about budgeting and scheduling. And even though you might not be doing budgeting as an AD, as a first and as a second, you are thinking financially for the producers. How am I going to not cost them more money? So having an understanding of how the finance works is very important for both that first and second position. Because your job is to spend the money appropriately and not make them spend more money. That's part of that balance between the creative and the producer side. There was what is your YouTube? Spokane Film Project it has its own YouTube channel, so you should be able to find it. There are I'm trying to remember, did Mark bring up the books about breakdowns and stuff in there, or did he just talk about it?
the books.
There's actual books you can find on scheduling breakdown.
I don't think he did, but I mean, that's been a while, so he may have. I don't remember.
We have everybody's email, so I might we'll just send you guys an email of people who are interested. There's an actual book that has like how you're supposed to break down a script, the colors you're supposed to use. There's an actual procedure, which I think is like in everything in life, you should learn how to do it by the book and then create whatever format works for you.
He did go through the colors. I know he went through the
he did
colors. I don't know if you referenced the books, but he did go through.
And of course, he's got my book still, I think.
I would also like to add, I mean, this was so much information, you guys, a lot of information and just kind of thrown at you in this format. But I know that like when I became interested in becoming an AD, I went to a friend who was an AD and said, "Can you teach me?" And she went through with me and another person for like 6 weeks, went through stuff with us. If it's something that you're interested in doing, if there is an interest in more education around the AD world, let us know that, just so that we at least can have that information and see what we can find for you. I know what's the website, Studio 54?
No, the website of, you mean
Oh,
Studio 59? That's a writer one.
Oh, okay. What was the one you were talking about? Is there one that you were talking about for, or that was more for producing?
No, what I was, there's a book. You meant the book? There's a okay.
Whoa.
There's a book. There's a book that is written by two directors, and it's called The Director Tells a Story. It is probably the best book that I have ever read that actually gives you a sense of the dynamics of a set. Though it's focusing on the director, it's focusing on every process of directing during prep, production, and post, and all the departments that they interact with. And there's a whole section on the AD and a schedule and how you do your own breakdown schedules and stuff like that. But I do feel, of all the books I've ever read about filmmaking, it's the first one I went, all right, it really does solidify everything if you haven't had a lot of experience on a set to start understanding that stuff. I mean, I know there's been a couple people's names that I recognize who have reached out when they were doing their project. Please reach out to SFP. We'll have people who will come in and at least guide you guys through the early steps and help you through it, do a little hand holding. but there'll be the crash and burn on your own. But it's gonna be how you're gonna learn. So it's not just you guys participating in this workshop, it's also you do have resources to come out and ask questions. And then particularly at whatever different level. Now, I know that Cheyenne and Jen primarily talked about second work, but Cheyenne's already first thing. She's phenomenal first. Jen should be first, but she's like, not happening. So we all three of us can definitely help you guys answer whatever questions might come up. Jamie, I saw your hand was up earlier. Did your question get answered?
Yeah, I did. I think
Awesome.
I think it was about the time cards, but you filled it out on the back.
Oh, no,
no. Time card. Is there a platform for time cards is what
Yeah,
you asked?
platform.
And we have done time cards a couple different ways. We've done daily timesheets just using a Google form and sending it out with the call sheet email. We would send a link in every single call sheet email that would have click this link to do your daily timesheet.
Okay.
Time cards, however, I mean, I have used software to do time cards in the past, but a lot of times it's a paper form that, people will fill out and then take a picture of and send it to accounting, or Rebecca has also used Google Forms well, I take that back. For local productions, our accounting departments have used just the daily timesheets and taken that information and created a time card for people. If you work outside of Spokane ever, you'll be responsible to do your own time card and daily timesheet, and they have to match. So yeah, there are some, and then some companies like Wrapbook or like Cast and Crew, they'll have their own time card set up because they do payroll. So it'll be an electronic form that they send out. But if you're doing one, if you need to make one for yourself, like if it's a local production, then I would actually just create a time card. And we've got samples we can send you if it's something that you are needing. Just let us know and I can send you a sample.
Yeah, it'd be perfect, especially when you're dealing with, because I noticed on your form, construction and art, which is what I've been doing, and costuming is separate, and you are kind of doing stuff before the production even starts.
Yeah.
So like I always say, I do all of my work before the film even starts.
Yep.
And then you're on call basically while production, in case something happens. So like for that, like for all the people that are doing the stuff in the middle, I guess, because what you guys deal with is while you guys are moving on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
As well. So it's interesting, just the two aspects of it, the beginning, middle, and end. So that's what I was kind of wondering, how you guys kind of do that. It's a massive undertaking.
Yeah. And accounting has that whole piece too, that they will send out, information about how to submit time cards.
Perfect.
Yeah, so they'll have their own procedures that they're going to ask for, right? But for your smaller project, guys, and if you're definitely thinking of going this AD route, the more you're creating your own time cards, like she was saying, on Google Forms, and creating these crew lists that, they create a crew list from the Google Forms, some submissions, so that all these things will help you just be more proficient on the electronic component of our industry that is now really the driving force. There's some new programs out there that are been pushing for the last couple of years, where it's going to be, there's one company that they've reached out several times for me to try to do their beta testing, where they have a comparable scheduling program, a comparable budgeting program, and the whole time card program all in the same system. So it's all coming out of one system and all marrying. There's that is always going to be changing and growing. So the more you're proficient at the electronic stuff, the better.
Thank you. Perfect.
And Brandon, as far as film accountants, I mean, all of the productions, I would say 90% of the productions that we work on are union. And so the accountant is a union position. So there are some union film accountants locally. And is it different than a CPA? I mean, film accounting is different than regular like accounting is. So, I mean, it's not that a CPA, they're just not going to know all the intricacies of film, a CPA. But you know, typically if you have a budget and you're talking about accounting for like payroll accounting is payroll accounting. There's no difference other than, you know, when overtime occurs, that may be different. But that's kind of like the same job. I don't know if that helps. If you're looking for film accountant, then certainly reach out to us and we can share some names with you and contacts.
Yeah, I'm in a Facebook group that's always asking for film accountants, and I'm always recommending my CPA that I work with, but I don't know what the difference is. And I know there's a lot of intricacies that go into I know payroll's payroll, like you said, but the budgeting and all that stuff, that's a lot different. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah. It's not drastically different. Really what you got, you're still having an accountant, because you're gonna, and a true accounting department has a payroll accountant, has an accounts payable person, right? And then there's the head accountant. And then your head accountant is basically almost playing the role of a CFO, which is taking, okay, this is what we budgeted, this is what we spent to this far, this is what I estimate we're going to be spending to date. You know, I mean, so that they're already forecasting, they're already trying to do some forecasting for you. And that's what a producer is looking at, to say, okay, am I on track to stay on budget, or am I going to go over? And if I'm going over in a certain department, where can I adjust? So the terminology is very much the same, but it's just understanding some of the assets that are in film that are not in typical accounting.
Yeah. And then also if there are people in Facebook groups that are asking about film accountants, I mean, it can get tricky when you start talking about like financing options and how the financing part works into the budget. And also if it's something that Washington Filmworks has anything to do with, if there's an incentive with it, then there is another layer that accounting has to have. So we have those contacts and we can certainly share them if it's something that you're ever in need of.
Yeah, and always at SFP, we have the roster here for the local stuff, right? So if it's local, look on that roster, or even just join SFP and go on the Facebook page. Hey, look, I'm looking for somebody who's got film accounting experience. That is an area that we're really thin in, and it's an area that we're trying to create some creative ways of getting involved with the university's businesses, classes, and accounting departments, and sharing some of this ability. But also statewide, you can always go to Washington Filmworks site and look on there. There should be listing of production accountants on there as well. Any other questions? I guess I have a question for the group. If is this what, based on what was being asked, was this what you guys were looking for? Was this pretty much give you I know it was a long 2 hours and something minutes information, but does this give you a good place to start from?
Absolutely. From my standpoint, anyway, I really felt that you covered a lot of bases, and you know, the best way to do it is get on the set and be in it. That's what I've learned, you know, and you know, being a student too, you know, I just haven't had that opportunity yet. So I hope to be able to get on some more sets and just see the flow and how things work.
Yeah, it's one of the things that disappoints me, not so much with the community colleges, but the 4 years, they don't have a production class. Where I had to go through production class where one semester of it was all in class, which was totally boring, reading the book, creating strips, doing breakdowns. The second semester you had to, it was kind of independent studies, but you had to be on 2 different projects as a first AD / UPM. And you had to create the board, you had to create the shooting schedule, and you had to turn that in at the end. And that was how you got your grade. And there's none of the schools here have that. And it kind of frustrates me, because it's like, this is an important part, even if you want to be, no matter where you want to be in the film industry, having an understanding of this makes you better at your job.
And
Um,
having an understanding of all the departments makes you a better AD. I mean, it's so collaborative all the way around that the more that you understand the jobs of each department, the better you are at doing your job, regardless of what position you're in. And it just helps you to, like, even if you're even if you're craft services, if you understand the timing of what it takes for people to do what, then you're able to provide, your services at a more timely and more efficient and better way. So my 2 cents.
No, definitely. And again, I recommend for any of you guys who have not had, you feel you haven't had enough experience or want to get more understanding, read that book. The director tells the story, and it will definitely give you the broad spectrum all the way from, like I said, prep all the way to post. Shoot, I saw something that made me want to check. Oh, with COVID, our COVID restrictions going away, that could free up the possibility of us, when we have production happening, of maybe being able to create some follows. And that is something that we are working on once we get productions. And usually between Jen and Cheyenne and Rebecca Cook and a couple other people who are all part of SFP, if there's people that we know are looking for that, we will try to make that happen. It is something we have to get approval of, and all those steps. But definitely to do a shadow following, it's not out of the question. We do that with schools already. Right now, what we need is work, which is going to be very little to none until the strikes lift.
Until the
the
strikes
Yep.
are cleared up, we're kind of all just looking for something to do.
Yeah. There are some commercial stuff happening that maybe we might be able to help out. We'll see. But again, depends on what the producers from the commercials are open to. Otherwise, like I said, continue looking at SFP. And if you're not members of SFP, you should be. Costs you nothing except the amount of time it takes for you to type in your information on there. It allows you to get on the private Facebook page where you can ask questions, anything from a technical question to a logistical question. We have people on the private page putting up location questions, and if they're trying to find a certain space or a certain actor, use it. It's there to use, and it costs you nothing. And people immediately, it's a very generous community where we're out here supporting each other, no matter what level of production you're doing, and people always respond back. And if there's other people that that are trying to do this kind of stuff, again, send them that direction. It's a simple place, and you get informed. You also get a better understanding of what advocacy support we need in our community to help our industry grow better. How do we get a stronger workflow pipeline so we can create a better, stronger workforce in our community? How do you guys can get opportunities in other positions? This is where SFP is looking for, but we can only do it with support by people getting involved and asking questions, and then getting involved when we're looking for help to do stuff. All right.
And Adina, thank you for the link. So she put the link in there to the book that Juan was referencing. So thank you so much for that.
All right, guys, if that's it, we're going to let you go. We appreciate your patience. And I would love, again, to thank all of you who reached out, and Jen for pushing us to do this. I'm really glad. And like I said, follow through with the videos with Mark on our Spokane Film Project YouTube channel. And that'll give you, we literally got, that'll give you, she literally goes step by step on the breakdowns and why certain things work. All right, cool. If that's it, guys, thank you very much. We're going to end this 2 and 50 minutes recording. And we'll say goodbye. See ya.